Hey there, Stampers. Welcome to this week's Friday Live. Excuse me, my name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I am excited to be here today to share with you a product focus video. So I have decided that once a month I'll choose a product and we'll focus on different ways to use that product. I thought that would be a nice feature to add to my shares. So this week, or today, we're going to focus on the Deckled Circles Dies. So these were in the September to December mini catalog, and they have carried over, which I'm so excited they did because I love them. I love that it's not like a solid circle. I love that there are so many different sizes. So it goes from about an inch all the way up to 6 inches. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different sized circles in here. So they nest beautifully, but there's so many different things that you can do with them. So I'm gonna share a few today, and actually I shared an idea on Wednesday. I'll share a peek at that project as well. And you'll see some additional samples throughout the month over on my blog at stamptreasures.com. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to point out that you do not need these specific dies to take inspiration from the projects that I share. So if you've got other layering circles, you can use these ideas with those layering circles. Okay, all right, so let's set these aside for a second. Okay, also before we jump in, I just want to remind you that we've got a brand new mini catalog, the January to April mini catalog, lots of great new product, and it is a celebration time, which means that with qualifying purchases, you can choose product out of here for free. There's a great host perk, and there's a great starter kit promotion as well. So if you live in Canada and don't already have a demonstrator and would like copies of these catalogs, just shoot me a message and I'm happy to pop them in the mail. And if you have questions about anything, just let me know. All right. Okay, so in addition to these Deckled Circles dies, I am going to use this beautiful Flight and Airy patterned paper. So this is a patterned paper that you can get for free with a $60 purchase during celebration. Now, again, just like the circle dies, you do not need to have this paper to create these projects. Use something from your stash. Okay, all right, so let me share both sides of this paper. So one side is kind of very florally, or well, a little florally, and it's got these beautiful birds. I love this one. This is so pretty. And then this one, and then the back side is kind of something just a little bit more simple. It's nice to mix kind of simple patterns with something that is a little bit more busy. I love this one too. And then there's this one, and a subtle floral. And then we've got these chunky birds. These birds are so cute. I love how chunky they are. This one is a great one to fussy cut if you like fussy cutting. And then there's the back side. All right, let's set that aside. Okay, let me just see here. Okay, Layla said that she has used her Deckled Circles lots. She said they're great to add texture, and that is true. Okay, before we jump into the projects that I'm gonna share a little, a few projects to begin with. So here is a simple way that you can use those Deckled Circles. So just kind of layering them on the front of a card. Isn't this cute? I love this. This is using the new Doggone something or other background stamp. This is a swap that I received. So there is that. And then on Wednesday, I shared these fun magnetic bookmarks. So you can check my YouTube channel for a link and you can see the video on how these were created and a few alternates. So I've used the Deckled Circles dies and then just kind of scored them in half and created a fun little magnetic bookmark. And of course you can use this same idea and do a rocking card. So this was another swap that I received. It just stands up and it kind of rocks, which is kind of fun. So that's another way that you can use them. Toss those over there. Okay, and then here is another card that I created. Again, so just simple, just die cut a circle from some patterned paper. I kind of folded it over so you have a peek at that pattern in the back, and then just decorated it. So we're gonna step this up a little bit for our first card. Okay, so let me pull out my bits and pieces that we need here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Okay, now you can find all the measurements and everything that you need over on my blog. I will go through them here, but you can also, don't feel like you have to rush and write them down. In today's blog post, which I will link once it goes live, you'll be able to find all those measurements. Okay, so our base is going to be a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of Lost Lagoon. And then I've got a piece of Calypso Coral that measures 4 by 5 1/4, and a piece of white that measures 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And I pulled those colors right from this patterned paper. That's one of the things I love about Stampin' Up! Is everything coordinates. There's no guesswork on what colors to use. Okay, and then I've got, this is a piece of that patterned paper. It was 5 1/4 by 5 1/4, and if you're using the Deckled Circles Dies, it is the 3rd largest die that I cut. Okay, and then if you want to decorate your envelope flap, then I've got a 2 1/4 by 6 inch piece for the envelope flap. Okay, all right, so first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take, actually we're going to add this to our coral to begin with. I'm just going to use a little bit of multi-purpose glue and position that right in the middle, just so that we have a little bit of that coral peeking out. I love to vary the sizes of my mats. So I have a 1/16 of an inch just kind of all the way around this one, but then when I put it on my Lost Lagoon piece, I'll have a little bit of a wider border, and I just think it looks so, it makes it look like a much more professional card. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to position this where I want it, but I want to flip it over because I want to make sure my birds, okay, so it goes like this. If your paper is directional, this is something you're going to want to be mindful of, because you'll see both sides of this paper. So that this is another great card if you love both sides of your patterned paper and want to be able to highlight both. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to kind of hold it in place, and I'm going to use my bone folder and just score this. And then I'm going to fold it over and use my bone folder again just to make it nice and crisp. And then I'll open it up. I'm going to use some more of this multi-purpose glue. And then we're going to fold that over like that. So you can see it has a similar look to this, but that one has the circle stuck down, whereas this one, it's going to lift open. So it's almost like a little flap that we've created. Now I'm going to take this and adhere it to my Lost Lagoon. Just like that, so that we have a nice even border all the way around the edges, and there is the base of our card. So you can see the pretty pattern on the outside and then also on the inside. Okay, so now we need to embellish it. So I've gone ahead and I've die cut 2 dies, and I've used this die right here from the Notes of Nature stamp set. So this is from the January to April mini catalog. But again, if you don't have this die set, just any leaves will work. Okay, so I die cut 2 of them. You can see one is looks a little bit different because I cut a piece off. We're not going to use this whole piece. And I also kept, excuse me, I also kept the negative space because we're going to use the negative space as well. Okay, all right, actually let's start with that. So I am going to bring in my blending brush and some garden green ink. And again, my colors are just pulled from the patterned paper. I'm going to set my ink over on my silicone mat, and I'm going to position this how I want it. So I'm going to do it about like this, just keeping in mind that you will be able to see it a little bit from the outside, okay, when your card is closed. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to cover over the stem because I don't really want the stem, and then dip my ink or my blending brush in here. You do want to be careful. There are some finer bits kind of in the center that aren't very stable. So I kind of like to go in one direction. So I'm just adding a bit of color, and this is just going to add a little bit of interest on the inside of our card. And it's a great way to use the negative space after you've die cut something. All right, now I want to add a little bit of something else. So many of you may have seen me do this before, but I love to add little trios of dots. So I'm just going to add little dots, and that's using the fine tip of my Stampin' Write marker. Let me bring that up a little closer so that you can see it. Isn't that cute? Those dots just add so much, and it's such a simple little thing to do. All right, now we're going to bring in our white scrap because we need to stamp our greeting, and I am going to use, where is my stamp set? I think I put it back in the drawer. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to use this Heartfelt Hellos, and I'm going to use this Enjoy Your Day. So I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to use some Calypso Coral ink and my black Stampin' Write marker. So I'm going to stick this over here, and what I'm going to do, because there is enough space in between the Enjoy and the Your Day, this is easy enough to ink up the Enjoy with your ink pad. So I'm just going to eyeball it and ink it up. If you're worried about getting ink on the Your Day, you can always mask it with a Post-it note or a piece of washi tape. So I just want to make sure that's well inked. I think that should be good. And then I'm going to use my Stampin' Write marker. So this is a water-based marker, so I can use them right on my stamps. I'm just going to ink up the Your Day, and then I'll give it a huff. That just re-moistens everything. I'll stamp it in the middle of my white cardstock, and now I've got a two-toned greeting. I can put this away. And then I wanted a label shape to die cut this. You can just cut it in a rectangle. You can use any shape really, but I wanted something that fit it nicely. So I pulled out the Autumn Leaves dies. This is also another product that was in the September to December mini catalog, but that carried over. But there are these great label shape dies, and they've got stitching around the edges, and I just thought that that would be perfect for this. So I'm going to use this, but again, you don't need this specific one. You could use any of the dies, label shape dies that you have. I'm going to bring in my little mini machine, and we're going to die cut this. So I'll position it on here, center my words, and I'm going to use just a little piece of washi tape to hold it in place, just so it doesn't move. I went to all that effort to stamp it in two different colors. I don't want to have to re-stamp it. Okay, that looks good. I'll just put that on there. And then the top one on, and we'll feed that through. Okay, close this up. Set it aside. Okay. So now we've got that label shape with that beautiful little detail around the edges. Can you see those dots? So pretty. Okay, let's put this die back so we don't lose it. Okay, now we've got all the elements that we need to finish off our card. So I am going to use a little bit of multi-purpose glue with this one leaf. And I'm going to figure out where I want this to sit. So I want it to sit about here. I'm okay with it hanging off the circle, but I want to make sure it doesn't hang off the edge, just so that it fits nicely into our envelope. So I'm going to go right about there. Just going to use a little bit of adhesive right there. I like to just keep the adhesive to a minimum on die shapes like this, because then they come off the page and it just gives it a little bit more texture and dimension. All right, on this piece, we're going to use some dimensionals. Look at this, a brand new sheet of dimensionals. And I'll just put a couple of them on here. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. When you use your dimensionals, do you go in order, or are you all willy-nilly? So I'm going to do 3 of them, but I'm not going to put too close to this edge, because remember, we're going to have some of that's going to hang off. Okay, this is going to go over top like this. So pretty. Okay, and then this piece, I'm just going to trim a little bit off of it. You can use the whole thing if you want, but I just want a little bit more of that green showing. And then I'll add a little bit of glue in behind here. Oh, Shauna says she starts from the middle and works out. That's interesting. But do you go in order? So you start here and then you'll go in a row? Or do you start in the middle and then it's just all willy-nilly? All right, and then I'm going to take a little bit of twine and tie a bow. And we'll trim that off of here. We'll add a little dot of multi-purpose glue right in the corner. Oh, interesting. We're going to add that on there, and then we just need to finish it off with a few little embellishments. And there are some embellishments in the celebration brochure. They are called the opaque faceted gems. So these are free with a $60 purchase. And again, you can use, I'm sure you've got embellishments in your collection that you can use, but I love that these coordinate with this pattern paper. So I'm just using a few of these on here. We'll use 3 of them. And we've got a beautiful card, kind of like a flap card, something a little bit different, using the Deckled Circles dies. And then of course you can decorate your envelope. So here I added a piece of the DSP to my envelope flap, and then I also repeated that pattern from the inside of the card on the envelope as well. All right, so that is card number 1. Okay, let's set this aside. I don't want my bow to fall off there. Okay, all right, card number 2. Pull out my bits and pieces here. Okay, we're gonna make a square card for this one. So here are the pieces that I have. Let me go through them. Again, you'll be able to find all of this on my blog. Okay, so again, I'm using that same Flight and Airy pattern paper. Love, love, love this pattern. So pretty. And I've die cut 2 circles that are the same size. So I started with a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of fresh freesia, and I cut the 3rd largest deckled circle. So the 3rd largest, okay, and then I die cut that from fresh freesia and also from my patterned paper. And then I also die cut from a piece of vellum. I die cut, this was started as a 4 1/2 by 4 1/2 inch piece. I cut the 5th largest deckled circle. So it's 2 circles smaller so that I have a little bit of a border around the edge. And then for the inside, I cut a piece of white. This was 5 by 5, and I cut the 4th largest, and you'll see how I use this in a moment. And then I've got a scrap piece of white, and I've also got a scrap piece of pattern paper for my envelope. So I'm using a 5.5 by 5.5 inch envelope. It's a square envelope. This isn't something that Stampin' Up! Carries. So your piece of pattern paper will depend, your sizing of your pattern paper will depend on your envelope flap. I did link in the description where I get these envelopes. Okay, all right. So we're gonna set these pieces aside. We're gonna take this piece and we're gonna score it in half. I'm gonna move my cutting blade out of the way, and I'm going to measure this. I believe it's 5 1/8. Let's measure it down here. No, we have to measure it up here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna measure it on my mat. Oh, no, it's 5 inches. So I'm going to score it at half, so 2.5 inches. So I'm going to line up the edge of my circle with the 2.5 inch mark, and then I'm going to score. Okay, so now we'll fold this in half, score it. And then this piece is going to go on the inside so that we have a nice layer to write on. And we're just going to pop that inside. So I did cut a whole circle, and then I cut that circle in half. But you can also cut just a partial circle if you're only making one card. And then this piece is going to go, I'm going to put it right on here. So I'm going to add adhesive to this bit. And I just want to make sure my birds are not upside down. And I'm going to line it up. Now, unless you cut these both at the same time, the cardstock and the patterned paper, you will find that the deckled pattern will not line up closely, or not line up exactly. So if you look closely, you can kind of see little bits of the purple peeking out from behind here, but it is so subtle that I wouldn't even worry about it. Okay. So this is going to be our card. It's going to stand up like this. And then you pick it up and you open it and you've got a message. Okay, so now we need to embellish our card. So our vellum's going to go over top. And we're going to take our white cardstock and we're going to stamp a greeting. And I wanted a nice big greeting for this one. Let's just cover this over. Okay, so I'm going to use Misty Moonlight, which is one of the colors in this pattern paper. And my greeting is going to come from this Softly Said stamp set. So I'm going to use this big thank you greeting. This is a stamp set that you won't find it in any of our publications, but you can find it in the online exclusive section of our website. And I love it because it's got some big greetings. Kind of fun to change that up and use something a little bit larger every once in a while. So Misty Moonlight, and then I'm going to ink up my thank you. And we'll stamp it down. And I love how this stamp set has a little bit of variation in the image. So you can see that some sections are a little bit lighter, and that's because the stamp actually has texture. It's meant to look like that, which is so fun. Okay, and then I went ahead and I fussy cut it. So that is one that I fussy cut. And the other thing that I did was from that bird sheet, the sheet with all those chunky birds, I went ahead and fussy cut one of those birds. The last thing that I need, or I'm going to need, is my twine. And now we are ready to go ahead and start assembling. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my twine. And I like to add my twine when I do it this particular way with a little bit of seal adhesive or roll-on adhesive. So I just put a little strip there. And then I'm going to do like a figure 8. And just loop it. And you can do it any number of times. You can make as many loops as you want. I do try to make the loops different sizes as I go so they don't all look exactly the same. Okay, I'm happy with that. So we'll just trim that so that it looks, I'm going to bring it up a little closer so you can see. It'll look something like that. Then on the back of this, we're going to take our mini dimensionals and add some dimensionals. So, and we'll do one more. I think it'll fit there. So you can see that I'm working on my glass mat. I love this glass mat. It is something that you can actually get for free during celebration when you purchase the starter kit, but only until the end of February. All right, so we've got our greeting there. Now what I'm going to do is use a little bit more of my roll-on adhesive. Just add a little bit in behind where my greeting is, because oftentimes you can see, okay, we want to make sure our card is going the right way here so that our greeting isn't sideways. Oftentimes you can see your adhesive through the vellum, so I strategically place my adhesive so that you can't see it. And then I'm going to add another dimensional, a couple dimensionals on here. Actually, we'll do 3. And our bird is going to sit kind of right in behind. And he's catching on the twine here, so just reposition the twine a little bit. Look how sweet that is. All right, now we need to add some embellishments. So for this one, I wanted to choose a color that coordinated with the DSP. I was going through the annual catalog, and these tinsel gems, the 3-pack, all 3 colors in here work with this pattern paper. So if you love this pattern paper and you're looking for embellishments, you might already have these because they've been available for a while. I'm going to use these fresh freesia ones, so the purple. And we'll just add a few of them on here like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish my card off by just adding a little bit more adhesive just to make sure that that vellum doesn't come off. So you can see that this is kind of flappy because we didn't add adhesive there, right? But then I added my bird, so I can add a little glue dot behind my bird, and then I'm going to add a little glue dot in behind this embellishment right here. And you won't be able to see it. And that just reinforces it just a little bit. And then we're going to take our envelope, and I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to the envelope flap. And we'll tuck this. I like to line it up with the top. And then I'll open the flap and trim any excess off. just trim this, and then we've got our second card all done. With a matching envelope. And there you go. So it stands up like this, which I know you guys can't see very well, but so kind of like that, and then opens like this. So that is another fun way that you can use the Deckled Circles dies. And then I have one more way that I'm going to share with you today. But like I said, I will be sharing more projects using the Deckled Circles dies throughout the month. If you missed the beginning of the video, I shared the bookmark that I made using the Deckled Circles. So I will link in the description where you can find the video for that. Okay. And then on Monday, I'll share a layout which uses Deckled Circles. And then throughout the month, you might see the odd project using them as well. So I really plan to focus on these dies this month. So they're so fun. All right. Okay, so I'm going to make a little treat holder. You might have guessed because you can see these little nuggets here. So I'm using Hershey's nuggets, which I know in Canada, it's hit or miss whether you can find them. Sometimes you can find them at Shoppers Drug Mart. Recently, I did see another Canadian demonstrator say that she found them at Superstore. I happened to pick these up when I was in the States. So they're a little bit different. We can find the Hershey's, I don't think they're called nuggets, but Hershey's little mini bars that are flat, but it's hard to find the rounded ones. So just so that you know, but you can, I'm going to show you how you can customize this treat holder for any size, well, not any size, any smaller size treat. Okay, so I'm going to share with you how I created this or how I designed this and how I figured out the measurements. Okay, so I was looking in, I have a cupboard that is full of all sorts of little treats because I like to keep them on hand for when I need to include some treats in with packages or little thank you gifts and stuff like that. So I looked in my cupboard and I thought, oh, these might be great for a little treat holder. So what I did was I measured them, and they measure, I wanted to do them this way, but you could do them this way as well. So you could use 3 and do them this way. So that's the first thing that you need to do, is you need to figure out which way you want to position them. So if it's one single longer narrow treat, then obviously you would put it like this. Okay, so you would want to measure that. So these measure, we're going to do them this way. They are just over 1 1/4. So I knew that I wanted to have 1.5 inches in the center. Let me show you what we're making. It'll make more sense if you see what we're making. So this is what we're making, a little treat holder. You can see the little nuggets inside. So I wanted this bit here to be 1.5 inches. Okay. So then what you need to do is you need to decide what size circle. So if it's a smaller treat, you don't need to use as big of a circle. For this one, I used the 6x6, so the largest size circle. And so then we know that 3 inches, actually when you cut it, when you cut it, it measures 5 3/4. You need like a 6x6 in order to cut it. So it's 5 3/4. So the center is 2 7/8. So then I worked out 2 7/8, and I took my ruler. Let me grab my ruler because you can't see the measurements on the bottom of my mat. Okay, so I took my ruler and I knew that how did I do this? 2 7/8 was the center. So, and I wanted it to be 1.5 on either side. So half, or 1.5 inches thick. So half of 1.5 is 3/4 of an inch. So 2 7/8 is right here, and you don't need your circle for this, but you can see it better if I have it on the circle. So 2 7/8 is here. So then I worked out 3/4 of an inch from either side. So that is 6/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2 1/8. So 2 1/8 is my measurement. Okay. And so that is how I'm going to score it. So I'm going to bring in my scoring tool. Hopefully by the end this makes sense. Okay, so the other thing is you want to figure out how you want your pattern. So I want my pattern, it is kind of directional. It's kind of a mosaic pattern, and I feel like it looks better this way. So I'm going to rotate it this way, and I'm going to score it at 2 1/8. And sometimes it's helpful to have a little ruler. So if you're not scoring it like where the line is, you can have a little ruler here and butt it up with 2 1/8. And then just make sure your pattern is kind of straight. I think that looks okay. So I'm going to score that at 2 1/8. And then I'm going to rotate it around and do the same thing on this side. So I'll line this up with 2 1/8. Make sure my pattern is straight. That looks good. But the other thing that I'm going to do is I can see my score line here. I want to make sure that my score line is straight, right? Because you don't want to have one, so I'm using the edge of the paper trimmer so that I can see the distance and making sure that the distance is the same from both sides. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want it to be pretty close. So that you don't have one score line that's going this way and one that's kind of going at an angle. So I do think it needs to move down just a smidge. Okay, and then we're going to score. So that is going to give us an 1.5 inch base. And that 1.5 inch, half of that is 3/4 of an inch. So that's why we found the center and then measured 3/4 of an inch out from either side. Okay, so then when we fold, we've got our base. So that's our little treat holder. Okay, so then I wanted to decorate the nuggets a little bit. So I cut some 1 by 3 inch pieces. Oh, I don't have any adhesive on this. Pieces of pattern paper. So I just used some of my scraps. And so I've got 2 more scraps here. We'll use this one. We'll put the purple side out. And this one we'll put the, let me think about this here. Yeah, we want to do the pattern side out on this one. Stick that down. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little strip here, and because I don't want my candies to fall out because there is no side to it. Okay, so now we're going to take our 1/8 inch handheld hole punch, and we're just going to punch a hole in the center. And I'm going to use some boho blue twine. So this is from the annual catalog. This is our jute twine, and boho blue is one of the colors that is in the pattern paper. I'm just going to feed that through and then tie a bow. And then we can trim this. And that jute is so curly. Let's see if we can take some of this curl out. Sometimes if you take your bone folder with some twine, you can straighten it out a little bit. There, it's not so bad. Okay, now we can adjust it. We'll make our loops kind of the same size and trim our ends so that they're even. And there's our little treat holder. Now we need to embellish. So I've got a strip of white cardstock here, just a scrap piece. And I'm going to use Just Because, which is also from the Softly Said stamp set. And Boho Blue ink, which is the same color ink as the jute that I used. And just going to stamp that on here. And then I'm going to trim it down so it's a little bit narrower. I'll bring in my paper trimmer. I always like to stamp on a larger piece. And trim it down, and that way if it's not centered, I can make some adjustments. All right, so we've got that, and it's a little long, so we're going to trim. I'm going to angle cut this side and then trim this so it's a little shorter, but I am going to leave a little bit more room on this side. And I'm going to take my bone folder and kind of curl it so it's like this. And then I'm going to add a dimensional right here. And then I'll add some flat adhesive here and here. And then this is going to go on here. Oh, I guess I should peel. Oh, I did. Okay. This is going to go on here like this. Just a little ways up from the bottom. And then I've got another cute little bird from that paper pack, or that one sheet of paper. I'll add a few dimensionals to that. And then we're just going to pop it up on here like that. We'll finish it off by using some of these blue dots from the Tinsel Gems. And we've got an adorable little treat holder with some little Hershey's nuggets in there. So here is a little recap. Here's all the three projects that we created today. And then, let me grab the other ones. And then here are a few more ideas. Oh, I'm trying to reach here. This is the magnetic bookmark. And then this one is the rocking card. And there we go. So lots of ideas using the Deckled Circles Dies. Or just a reminder, you can use any layering circles. You just might have to adjust your sizes a little bit depending on how big your circles are. All right, so I will go back. I will make sure that there is a supply list in the description so that you have that. And if you live in Canada and don't already have a demonstrator, I'd love for you to shop online if you saw something that you liked today. All right, thank you so much for watching and have a fabulous weekend. Take care.